Hello and welcome to the Good Art Friends, where good friends discuss good art. Jonathan, my good friend, how are you doing on this fine November evening?
I'm doing well. For those of you who have listened to this podcast, you've heard the saga back when we did our sad songs. I had something to be very sad about when my water heater burst and flooded my house, but soon, by the time that you are listening to this, everything will finally have been repaired. So I am quite good.
Yeah, it's been a few months because that was not the last episode.
No, it was not.
Yeah, almost there. Though I feel like we're tempting fate in a Frankensteinian kind of way, thinking that you have this ingeniously figured out and everything's going to work out just fine. So
I am trying to avoid tempting the thing from high atop the peak of whatever.
Nice. Yeah. And what else is good? We usually start with what's good, different things that are good.
Yeah, I went, I think in the last time we talked, I was talking about looking forward to going to a concert. I attended said concert of Saturdays at Your Place touring their album, These Things Happen. I got to see Carly Cosgrove for the first time. They did a lot of their really great stuff from their album of last year titled The Cleanest of Houses Are Empty. I got to hear them do some of their big hits, including Really Big Shrimp and a personal favorite, What Are You, a Cop? And yeah, it was a great time. And I saw Riley, which is all capital letters plus an exclamation point at the end, for the second time this year. I saw them back in April when they were one of the openers for Arm's Length. And they put on a really good show, and I've had one of their songs stuck in my head, which is titled 777, all numbers. And the song opens with a repeating audio track of a slot machine just saying winner, 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 winner. It's nice. Really good. I had a good time.
Yeah. Wonderful. Mine for this, and I feel like I just finished up R.F. Kuang's Katabasis. I feel like I mentioned Babel at a previous episode, but this book, oh man, it was fantastic. It just came out in the last couple months, but have you heard about this? Are you familiar?
I am not.
Oh, it's a great pitch. So it's two doctorate students in analytical magic, so this world in which you can study and perform magic. So two doctorate students travel through the circles of hell to retrieve the body of their advisor. Not because he was a wonderful person, they miss him or anything like that. He was actually quite awful, but because they were so close to graduating and getting a cushy job, and they've just put up with his shit for all these years that no, we're not. We need him back for the letters of recommendation. So part of it is just this fun kind of different ideas about the afterlife, but then it also gets into our relationships with our bodies, with our minds, and with each other. There's a good it's a very engaging book in a page turning, but it's also a very thoughtful and insightful book. So I highly recommend that. And then one, I will not say anything about it, but just Pluribus on Apple TV, just because it's better if you kind of go in blind. It's only 3 episodes in as of, when this will probably be released, but highly recommend it. Yes.
I'm imagining Katabasis as high fantasy Weekend at Bernie's.
Sure. Yeah, I'll take it. But yeah, Kuang's a fantastic writer, so I've enjoyed everything I've read by her so far. And yes, similarly, and has kind of that kind of dark foreboding tone, which would make it it wouldn't shock me if Guillermo Del Toro, did one of her books at some point. And this month we were talking about Guillermo Del Toro's Frankenstein. But I want to so the front half, we're going to have some general talk about Del Toro, about Frankenstein over the years, all those. Then we'll give a little break, a little warning in case you have not engaged with this 200-year-old story, or more specifically Del Toro's version, because it is a little different. And then we'll do kind of spoiler talk in the back end. So I was curious, I don't really know the answer to this. Have you seen Guillermo Del Toro movies before? What's your relationship with him?
So this is really fun for me. This is gonna go back around to last December, when I was enjoying everything slowing down, having some time for myself, capping off a year in which I watched, I think, almost 75 movies last year. I watched Trap.
Wow.
And that movie was great. Movie by M. Night Shyamalan. And I remember I was talking to my oldest sister about this movie and saying how I enjoyed it. And I was like, this is the first M. Night Shyamalan movie I've watched. And her eyes got so wide. And she was like, what in the world? How? And I say that to say, this is my first Guillermo Del Toro movie.
Interesting. Hellboys, none of those.
I still haven't seen Pacific Rim, and I don't know how I have missed the giant robot movie.
I haven't seen that one either. Yeah. Well, and I will say that Pan's Labyrinth is one of my like top 5 movies of all time. It's this beautiful and heartbreaking and fascinating world of just escape and fascism and fairy tales and all those kind of things. And the score, the music for it is beautiful. I highly recommend Pan's Labyrinth. Shape of Water is the one that he actually won the Oscar for. I think that won Best Picture, and it was quite good too. Assuming you're good with human/monster love angles, you know that people have their thoughts there. But yeah, I recommend Pan's Labyrinth for the next one. Yeah, that's your homework for the next.
All right, it's on the list.
Next episode. Yeah, but he and one of the things I would say is that he's a through line in a lot of his movies is a very sympathetic kind of look at what some might consider monsters, be it Hellboy or the fish creature in Shape of Water, or even like the vampire, Daywalker, Blade 2, and all, Nightmare Alley, Kronos, a lot of these throughout. So in many ways, and he did like Pinocchio a year or so ago as well. So in some ways it seemed inevitable that he would do Frankenstein. And there's been some interesting interviews where we talk about like his connections with the story from like a little kid growing up. So I'm excited to talk about his version of Frankenstein. But first, I want to kind of zoom back and just talk about Frankenstein over the last 200 years. And starting with, can we step into Autistic Corner to do a little info dump on Mary Shelley writing Frankenstein?
I am seated.
Okay, this is I love this. So 1815, there's this volcano, Mount Tambora, I think it was called, and it erupts and huge. It's like the deadliest volcano eruption in history, to the point where like that next summer, it's essentially like almost like nuclear winter-esque, where everything is still just like dark pretty much the whole time. It never heated up, all those kind of things there. And that's the same summer in which Mary Shelley, who's only like 19 at this time, would want to go on this like little summer getaway to Lake Geneva in Switzerland with her husband, the more famous Percy Bysshe Shelley, and a few different like writer friends, including Lord Byron. But the whole summer getaway doesn't really work because, volcanic eruption and everything kind of there. So it ends up just being kind of like dark and stormy and moody the entire trip. So they're like just instead over the summer just doing like reading each other scary stories by candlelight and all that kind of stuff. And then one of the things that comes out of this is that they're all going to try to write their own scary story, their own horror story. And you have, now Mary Shelley was thought of as a kind of talented writer. Her mom, Mary Wollstonecraft, was a famous writer, one of the first like feminist writers. But, most people are thinking like Percy Bysshe Shelley and all these kind of times. But then they come back and Mary Shelley creates essentially the first work of many consider science fiction, and just this incredible philosophical piece when she's only 19 years old that is Frankenstein. And so the first one comes out in 1818 and is published anonymously. Most people thought it was her husband, Percy Bysshe Shelley, that wrote it. Then eventually she kind of takes credit. And she revises it in 1831, a few small changes that we'll probably talk about in the back end. But then it kind of takes off, and just over the next 200 years, we get all these different versions of Frankenstein. But I love that idea of all these like famous male writers getting together and seeing who can make the scary story, and this 19-year-old girl creating this genius work of literature that's Frankenstein. So yeah, that's the info dump at the top of the show.
I love it. I love how, it can be a lot of times the unlikeliest people who change the world.
Yeah. Well put. And so what is your relationship with Frankenstein, the story and the monster and the creator and all of that? And like, what are some different versions you've seen? And yeah.
Yeah, as mentioned at the tail end in a throwaway joke of our last episode, my only relationship with Frankenstein was watching Young Frankenstein with my dad.
Yes, Frankenstein. Yeah,
that's literally the only connection that I have, because I don't really do like monster movies or monster lore. I am not very much a horror person. I love the idea, the platonic ideal of horror, right? I don't enjoy engaging with it. I like suspenseful thriller movies. Like I did watch Rosemary's Baby with my dad once, which is not scary as much as it is very unnerving. And that's my kind of jam. So I never really went into the whole monster, the classical monster realm, Frankenstein, Dracula, et cetera, et cetera. So I really enjoy this podcast and how we both pitch our interests to each other, and it allows me to expand and to learn and to move into different realms.
Yeah, well put. And it's so similar. Like my strongest memory is Mel Brooks's Young Frankenstein. But I did like some of those like kind of campy Universal monster movies. And partially because it's not jump scares and those kind of things. And it is, a little more philosophical. But the Frankenstein's monster that you see in that and a lot of depictions, I find kind of fascinating, because it is this really dumb, slow, straightforwardly evil creature in a lot of these depictions, which is fun and great when you have the, monster mash kind of thing. But it's just fascinating because that's not how Mary Shelley kind of wrote the creature. As we'll talk about in a few minutes, that's not really Guillermo Del Toro's approach to monster movies. And it's just fascinating that this literary creation, well, I mean, in many ways, she created a thing that turned into something other than what she expected. And that's kind of part and parcel with the story itself. I find that kind of fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, any other kind of preamble or general thoughts before we pause, let people watch the movie if they have not already done so, and get into spoilers?
I am going to buckle up and be very brave, because I do not know what to expect when I am sitting down to watch a movie in a genre that I do not usually foray into. So I'm very excited, and we're going to see what happens.
Yep. So it's on Netflix, which is part of the conversation too. It had a very limited release before, and this seemed like a shame, before actual like Halloween. It was only a few theaters. It came near us right before we started recording, but only a few times. But mostly it was kind of dropped on Netflix. So if you have Netflix, go watch it. It's worth watching. And then come back and we'll chat about Guillermo Del Toro's Frankenstein. See you soon. And we're back. We've all now watched the movie. All right, Jonathan, what were your general impressions?
If anybody listening to this podcast has seen my Letterboxd, you already know my review for this. And 4 stars, right? And the only sentence in my review for this movie is as follows. Hear me out, colon. What if everybody was nicer to each other?
Yeah, pretty much. Which is fascinating because that is not... If you read Mary Shelley's, that's not going to be your story graph review. So is that fascinating? Like, Del Toro has a very sympathetic view towards monsters, and that is his angle in this movie. And so that threw me a little. But yeah, it's a kind of fascinating story to be telling in 2026. And we'll get into some of the like political kind of angles of it too. But yeah, I like that. So you like the movie then? 4 stars?
I did.
Yeah,
I really did.
You're a strict grader.
Well, okay. Yeah. Let me rewind. Let me rewind real quick.
Okay.
Right? Because what I really wanted to say at first, I really wanted to tell you that I disliked watching this movie. Mainly because everybody is so mean to everybody else. It was a difficult watch. I watched it all the way through, and not in like very difficult. Not as difficult as the other movie that I watched in the same weekend, which I watched for the first time. There Will Be Blood.
Yes,
I did have to watch that in 2 halves, and my Letterboxd review is I watched this in 2 halves. And it made me wholly miserable. Frankenstein didn't do that for me, but it was very moody and very somber. It's the feel bad movie of the year. 4 stars.
I like that. Yeah, and somber, and that's one of the things that Del Toro does. He just is able to nail tone on a number of different levels so impeccably well. And I think that's the case in this movie. Just the visuals, his use of, he's always does a great job with practical effects. The costumes in this I thought were incredible. Even just some of the like historicity or even lack thereof, the ways in which he makes some of it feel rooted in a vague time in the past. Like they just say the war, they don't really specify. But at the same time, it feels both rooted in the past and today. Mm-hmm. The score is fantastic. Just all of it has that kind of like, moody, somber, pontificating kind of feel to it, which I love.
Yeah, on the costumes, the monster definitely did show up dripped out, walking on the ice at the very start of the movie.
Oh, yeah. And that's something, if we can maybe start there, one of the things I really appreciate about this movie that I think a lot of the other versions of Frankenstein skip is the use of the frame story. And I think this is essential. Most of the time when I've seen Frankenstein versions, it's just... it's the like straight chronological kind of thing. But I think the frame story is really key for here. Like in the book, it's Bolton. He has a different name in this. But I think it's important to have the story be framed with this idea of a captain who just wants to make it to the like North Pole for the honor and pride and privilege and all those kind of things there. Because I think that gives you another layer of, or another means of engaging with the thesis, which is like, don't be Icarus. And I'm probably not going to create like a monster that's going to trample villagers and stuff like that. But I can wrap my head around a little bit more the idea of like in my job trying to do something, not paying attention to the employees around me that like, hey, I'm pushing too far and maybe I should kind of hit pause on a thing. So I think that frame story was really done well, and it's hard to do that kind of thing. That works better in a novel than it does in a movie. So I applaud Del Toro for including the frame story and pulling it off, I think, quite well.
Well, this is really just the full quote. This is from Jurassic Park. Your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could that they didn't stop to think if they should. That's 100% Victor Frankenstein. It just got hung up in the poor relationship with his father, and then trying to prove his father wrong and prove him wrong at all costs, that he ends up basically hurting everybody by collateral damage.
Yeah, that's well put. And I love that, he's missing this relationship with his father. It is soured. And then he just passes that sin right along to the next generation because his progeny, essentially, our progeny, he abandons in the same kind of way. And in a really interesting way, too, in that, like in Shelley's book, Victor abandons the creature due to a lack of beauty, and this idea that it is, and when she was writing, this idea that like the outside should match the inside, that's what people kind of thought of. But in this, Del Toro switches it, and it's not a lack of beauty that angers him, but it's a lack of intellect. I found that to be a really interesting change that Del Toro made, that's the thing that just kind of infuriates Victor, and that to him is inexcusable. I thought that was a really creative move.
Yeah. You want to start by talking Victor's story before we move to second half?
Yeah, sure.
So what I found interesting in this first half, I did love how much Victor believed in what he was doing. Like, it's just really the true... I mean, I guess you could pencil him in as a mad scientist, but it's just really in the fact of, like, he believes in what he does so fervently because he knows that it can work, and he wants to show that it works. And then he ends up, teaming up with somebody who's basically like, I'm going to give you everything that you want as long as you give what you make to me in the end, which was so fascinating.
Yeah, and there was a couple good quotes in there that I liked. I think most of them coming from Elizabeth, who kind of serves as this contrast and this foil. Both, there's she says at one point, ideas are not worthwhile by themselves. And then later, believing something does not make it true. So even if there is this root of a idea here of just trying to preserve and that life can be sacred and all that kind of stuff, the execution and the method that you go about matters. So I love that contrast in what she says, what she believes, but then also with Del Toro being Del Toro, he layers it on visually as well. Like the movie is extremely, especially in Victor's tale, that part of it, like black and white and grays. And then all of a sudden you have Elizabeth popping up with these kind of bright greens and blues, these colors that represent life. As well as, bright reds, which pop up from time to time. And I think that contrast is well done. Yeah. So, what else struck you from like the Victor's tale part?
Let's see. I think you mentioned the foil of Elizabeth and her really just bouncing off of him and just showing up as somebody who sees the world as what it could be, rather than Victor as somebody who sees the world as what it should be, right? He sees it as something that should be ordered ordered yet also defied, right? Because, humans have this power. Why shouldn't we flex this to the limits? And then you have Elizabeth, who is somebody who appreciates nature as it exists and lets it follow its natural course.
She studies with the idea of trying to see God's design, I think is how she puts it there. And she's interested in the small, these like insects and things like that, without her interfering. Whereas Victor's the exact opposite. He's only focused on the big, the huge, and changing God's design, interrupting that. So I think that creates an interesting dynamic there. And it's really well played by Mia Goth. If we can get into some of the performances there's like a nuance there. And something I didn't realize till after, and this gets into some interesting ground, but she also played Victor's mom, which I think is a fascinating approach to thinking about this. So you get a little bit Oedipal, and you see both them wearing those bright red colors that no one else wears at various times.
Right.
And that's Yeah, I don't know how much to unpack this, but yeah, Del Toro as Goth playing both his mom, and he has these quotes like, when the dad was away, I got to just essentially monopolize time with my mom, but it was
Right.
delivered in a creepier way, and then
Yes.
becoming obsessed with Elizabeth, um, and that's I thought that. What do you think of her performance?
I thought it was good. It's just really interesting of her playing somebody who was truly fascinated by the wonder of creation and was just so taken by what he was doing that she truly did just care for the creation of what he was doing and less of him as a person. Completely abhorred him as a person, but admired what he created.
Yeah, well put. I mean, he did sneak into a confessional booth to try to data scrape from her. Yeah. Right. What about Oscar Isaac? How did you like his Victor?
I thought it was interesting. I don't know if it's my favorite performance by him, but oh man, he definitely just got more intensely deranged as the movie went on.
Yeah, that's well put. Have you seen Ex Machina?
I have not.
Garland. Oh, it's really, really good. And he, in some ways, plays a similar character in terms of like ambition going too far and something that you create getting out of your control. But this one's definitely a little bit campier in his performance of him. You could tell he was having fun, which, good for you, Oscar Isaac. You deserve it. But yeah, I thought that he did a nice job playing up this monster and allowing the people around him to kind of bounce off that camp. Yeah. Yeah. And so then it switches, and I thought this was the real strength of the movie. But then you get into the creature's tale. How did you like this part of the movie, and how did you like Jacob Elordi's depiction?
Yeah, phenomenal treat for me in this movie. It's just like, oh yeah, you heard what he had to say about me, huh? Well, how about I tell you what happened to me? And I'm like, oh, wow, the quote monster gets to have his whole input in this movie. I thought that was awesome. And I loved the fact of just watching him. I really think this is the movie is a study on the fact of how created life truly is a blank slate that tends to want to be pure and work for good until outside forces act on it.
Yeah, I like how you put that, because I think that is why we're still talking about Frankenstein over 200 years after this story was kind of created. And I think that the flaw that a lot of other versions of this story take is they make the monster, they miss the nuance there of that nature and nurture and just, is the creature good? Is it evil? How monstrous is he? I feel like too often they make the monster too evil, and it misses the interesting nuance there. My only complaint about this movie is I think it went to the other extreme where, does the creature do anything wrong? I think that the version Del Toro has the creature just overly good in a way that I think loses some of the nuance of just this kind of story there. The beauty of Mary Shelley's work is that you're reading the story and you little by little start to wonder, we're like, wait, which one is the monster? Maybe it's Victor. And there's a lot of interesting ways in which you start to unpack this. For instance, the entire book is written, only Victor gets to tell it. He is telling the story there, to the point where it's a series of letters, and they mention offhand that Victor grabs the other guy's notebook and makes changes to its notes just to paint him in like a better picture, So there is this kind of nuance, and the monster does some monstrous things. He, kills a child accidentally, but then Victor is going to marry Elizabeth in the book, and Victor, because because Victor wouldn't create a bride for the creature. The creature's like, well, screw you, then I'm taking your bride, and murders Elizabeth. So there's some awful deeds by the monster, but you have to wonder, like, would he have done this if he wasn't abandoned, if he was given a good upbringing? Could nurture have like prevailed? Whereas here, right, there isn't much subtlety. I mean, they literally have the brother say to Victor, "You are the monster," which, so there's no subtext in this one, which is okay. And I think that works the best in the creature's tale when you see him outside that farm, the DeLacy's, because you can kind of see how that unfolds. But it gets a little bit tricky towards the end when you're like, oh, so the creature did nothing wrong. And then if that's the case, then Victor didn't really err in making the creature, because he made just a wonderful human,
Yes.
So that's my only piece, that I love this part of the creature at the farm as he learns about the world, as he learns about good and evil, as he learns about protecting and helping others. But I wish they made him a little bit more nuanced.
Yeah, as it was interesting just watching him. Of course, like, he's in the forest feeding the buck until the buck gets shot right in front of him, and then he gets shot.
Yeah. And
he ends up crashing at the place with the people that were trying to kill him, and come back and try to kill him again, even though the situation looks quite bad when they come to get him, because the wolves have ravaged the home and the old man, and there's just blood everywhere. But really fascinating in the depiction of this monster that's really like just a walking dead creature that picks up intellect of one of the strongest minds of its day, just casually by learning to read.
Wait, that's not how you learn to read? That wasn't the hooks of phonics in the
Yeah, I read one book and then I became Death, destroyer of worlds, right? That's the leap.
Forget science of reading and like Letterland and all that. This is what we need to do.
Yeah, it's just truly amazing. Like, he did that in 3 months, right? In 4 months, he went from dead to enlightened human being and an enlightened philosopher, right?
Oh, yeah. And also, his first book was not Cat in the Hat. It was, Milton's Paradise Lost, which, not exactly entry level. Yeah.
Right. With all of that said, one thing I did appreciate that helped to highlight really the monster's true docile nature was when he was hanging out at the forest house, and he's just like, all of these mice and rats are just hanging out and running all over him, and he's just like, lovely. Yeah, you guys are cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I did like that. Yeah, that stretch, that was my favorite stretch. I thought that was well done. What do you think of Elordi's performance?
I thought it was good. I enjoyed watching his evolution from chained revenant being to monster on a mission. And it's like one of those things where like the only violence that the monster really ever committed was in response to violence that was done to him. Right? He didn't really often go out to seek to hurt somebody else unless they harmed him first. And that's really weird as I'm thinking about it. I didn't really notice it during the movie, but reflecting on it, it's just like, like when he's going after the ship of people, like he's just like, I want Victor. And then he starts going forward. They shoot him, and then he starts going. I will say at the beginning of the movie, I was rooting for the monster while he was tearing everybody apart. I thought that was great. But yeah, I thought his performance was good. I really enjoyed it. He really bought into the role, and he really helped to humanize the monster in the way that I think Del Toro wanted it to be portrayed.
Yeah, he's... Because, I mean, especially the first half, he's not given much in dialogue, so he's doing it all with his, like, physicality, with his eyes, and, he nails it. I thought that performance, that's the first thing I've ever seen him in, Yeah, what's that show on HBO he's from? Like Sydney Sweeney came from there, and Zendaya, I think.
Euphoria? Is that it?
Yeah. Apparently he was in that, but I've never actually watched Euphoria.
Me neither.
But yeah, I thought it was good. I thought it was good. Yeah. So yeah, it's now you also want to talk about some like political reflections on this movie. What were your thoughts on this lens?
We're bringing up another quote. Here we go. The hunter did not hate the wolf did not hate the sheep, but violence felt inevitable between them. Just truly like him learning the way of the world and not understanding that everybody could not exist at peace, but then learning that just naturally there are these friction points that have come up and do occur. And then on top of that, you have Victor creating this monster and then demanding fealty from the monster and being upset with the thing that he created because it doesn't behave in the way that he wants it to. And just the very odd to look at the power dynamics. And like, of course, like not everything is a political allegory. However, if you look at this, it's kind of hard to look past.
Yeah. And who gets to control their bodies and some of those pieces there, And I thought one of the things I just keep thinking about how this switch from, the creature is the monster to this being very clear, like, no. Victor is the monster. And I wonder if that kind of reflects a little bit just how we as a society feel about quote unquote brilliant men, and even just back when I was growing up, the versions of Frankenstein where we sympathize with this, no, this guy's a genius. It's not his fault. It kind of got out of his control. Whereas now I think we seem a little bit more rightfully critical about some of these big names that we see in tech. I think there's some connections with, AI and creating these monsters without actually considering what it might do. That Jurassic Park quote that you said earlier, that just because you could doesn't mean that you should kind of angle. So that's something that crossed my mind as I was watching this. It is not a sympathetic view of the genius of the person thought to be a genius.
Yeah. And it's also, I think, just like, I think for me, just trying to find a way to like wrap up my point and make it a little more concise. You give a modicum of power to a person or a group, and then they embrace that and they grow into it, and then the people who have given the power get upset with how the people are embracing the space that they've been given and then want it to be crushed.
Yeah, that controlling piece. Yeah, well put. It also struck me on this angle just that I thought it was interesting. In Shelley's original work, the big flaw, all this comes out of isolation. Victor does all his work isolating himself from his family, from his friends, and that's kind of the sin. That's where he went wrong, that he just kind of cut himself off from society. Whereas here, Del Toro, it seems pointedly to have him do his creating within a community. Now, part of that might just be in a movie, you need someone to talk to. You can't have an internal monologue too well. There's only so many voiceovers you can do. But also I wonder too, just that he's corrupted by this, war profiteer that eggs him on. And then he in turn takes advantage of others like his brother. And I think that contagious corruption, I think, is something that speaks to our times here. And the fact is that just like, and you can't really be isolated in today's world in the same way. And those that feel that way oftentimes find there will always be people that will take advantage of the really young, isolated men that might have a little bit of anger in them. And that seemed to be a part of this story of, was it Harlander, kind of like praying and egging Victor on instead of directing him in a way that could be used for good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. I have one final question for you, and then I have an observation.
Okay.
So my final question.
Yes.
The climax of this movie is the monster forgiving Victor. Your thoughts?
Yeah, see, I go back to I hate to be the obnoxious, like, the book is better. I think the book has a bit of flaws and it drags in many ways there, but I like the nuance of the creature being a murderous thing, and you have to wonder just how it came there. His last death is, essentially Victor, who's kind of dying and passing away at the time, and then the creature says, like, my work is done, and he goes off to, like, go die on his kind of own. So I like it in theory of him forgiving Victor, but I don't know what Victor did to, and forgiveness doesn't necessarily need to be earned. There should be grace around there. So I think there's something beautiful here, but it was definitely an unearned forgiveness in terms of, like, Victor just being a dick for 3 hours. Yeah. What did you think of the ending?
I don't know. Like, it's, on one hand, you can understand, just given the fact that neither of these people have talked to each other ever, right? Like, the creature has only said 2 words to Victor by Victor's account, up until this point, which were Victor and Elizabeth before he set him on fire. And then he gets to sit down and tells him, like, what happened. And I think you can look at it in the sense of the monster really only has one default path, which is toward peace. In this version of the tale, the true path of the monster is toward peace and harmony as he can see it. And to have a chance to sit down and to understand from Victor what happened, I think you can rationalize him saying, all right, I understand why you did this. However, you were extremely horrible to me, which he did tell him that he was. And Victor, of course, definitely understood, and he didn't deny how horrible he was. So, like, you can understand it. And I think if you're going to write the creature in the way of having a proclivity toward peace, this is more often what the outcome is going to be. I think it can really be told in a way of, at the end of the day, like, what the Arsenal's team motto, victory through harmony, right? Like, you can achieve that. And, it is a movie, and it can be unrealistic if it wants.
Yeah. And I will say, I will appreciate the ending all the more if Del Toro gives us a Bride of Frankenstein.
Yes.
With Mia Goth, because Mia Goth, I think, would make a fantastic Bride of Frankenstein. I don't know how long she's been buried at this point, but I don't know, maybe it's cold in the ground or something. But I would love to see, and I think this version of the creature would work well in a just him and the bride just trying to live their life and humans being kind of awful around them and them trying to overcome that. So this would be set up for that in a way that it wouldn't be if he's, like, murders Victor and then runs off and dies.
Exactly. And this does bring me to my observation. I don't want to be a vampire. If I was forced to live forever, I too would be mad.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, there's a certain amount of these things are, inevitable. Okay, I like that. All right, and what do we have coming up next month? Our last episode of the year, our new tradition. It is
the second annual Garts. For those of you who are listening, please reach out to us on socials. We're on Blue Sky, Good Art Friends on Blue Sky. And let us know what were some of your favorite things and your most good things of the year.
Perfect. All right. Well, Jonathan, my good friend, thank you for talking about good art with me tonight.
I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I look forward to recapping a good year with you in our next episode.
Likewise. Take care.